Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Generally, when it comes to War Thunder, events are incredibly important, whether it's something like Operation Summer, Operation Heat, Operation Winter, the World War Mode stuff, or even things such as the Sea Voyage event or the Build-A-Bear events. Generally, the events are important because it means that you can either get event vehicles, premium vehicles, or even at the end of the day, you can get some cool decorations and decals. It's a way that people can get Gaijin coin through the markets, and it's also a way that people come back to the game in order to get some cool, unique things. And generally, these events are centered around either high-tier vehicles, high-ranking stuff such as the Macarva, the MiG-21, and even the M60 AMBT from the World War Mode last year. But generally, for me, when it comes to events, I would like some smaller events as well, which we did start seeing, over the last few years, such as the Battle of Britain event last year, which gave us a nice, cool premium Hurricane. But I would just like more stuff like that, which would be kind of just weekend events or week events, where you get some unique stuff, which may not be that meta-defining, nor may not be that good, but could be used in different ways. The one that I'm proposing today is to celebrate or to remember the first ever tank-on-tank battle, which happened about 102 years ago in, of course, 1918. And this was a very interesting battle. Obviously, in the First World War, tanks were very much used as line breakers, as trench cutters, to be able to push forward your troops and use basically a metal cage in order to do it, with some guns on them to either destroy pillboxes or to destroy machine gun nests. They were massive beasts at the end of the day, very much not a great machine to be in, and also had many different mechanical issues. And by the time of 1918, each side of the war had realized that having these tanks was important just so they could create some offensives and just so they could push forward. But one thing that didn't happen too much during the First World War was actual tank-on-tank engagements, because they weren't really designed to fight each other. They were much more designed, as we talked about, to push the line forward. But at certain points in the war, there was actually tank conflict, and this came in 1918, where basically in the spring, the German military was struggling. It's pretty much as simple as that. They were struggling economically, they were struggling militarily, there was also a rebellion of sorts happening in Germany at the time, and because the war had already gone on for so many years, at least that's what it felt like, the army was really short of manpower. So they decided to try and do a spring offensive, which was aimed at the vulnerable scene between the French and British armies, which was called Kaiserschlacht. And this failed to achieve its goals, but it would have put the Germans in a better bargaining position for the end of the war. So very similar to the Battle of the Bulge, or the spring offensive that happened in the Second World War, something similar also happened in the First World War. And then there was a follow-up offensive after that in late April, and it was designed to seize the French city of Amiens. And what happened was there was a stepping stone between Amiens and the German forces, and this was the town of Villers-Bretonneux. And Villers-Bretonneux, there was a lot of British forces which were stationed there, and in order for the Germans to take Amiens, the German army had to go through this area. So what happened is on the 24th of April 1918, German forces launched an assault on Villers-Bretonneux. And there was obviously an artillery barrage, mainly actually high explosive, also mustard gas and smoke. And this actually meant that the visibility between the two forces was only about 30 yards. So the defenders had no idea what was coming, basically having to hope on sound instead of actual visibility. When the artillery ceased, a wave of German infantry and also A7 A7M tanks advanced on British positions. Now, if you don't know what the A7 tanks are, the A7V being the, most, I suppose, most produced one, there was 20 of them built, and the A7s were the German equivalent to what you know as the Mark IV, a metal box with a 57mm that was put in the front of it, along with a bunch of other parts to it, such as 5 to 30mm of armor. Obviously, it didn't go very fast. It was around about 33 tons in weight, and since there wasn't a ton of them built, they were very, very precious when it came to the Germans. It was powered by two Daimler-Benz 4-cylinder 200 horsepower engines, with the main armament, as I said, with a 57. The secondary was 6 7.9mm machine guns, because of course, as I said, it was designed to push through basic trenches and also open field. The main issue with this machine and many others was it wasn't very fast. 15 kilometers an hour on roads and 6.4 kilometers an hour cross country. And at the same time, it had a real issue when it came to actual, not really survivability, but mechanical stuff. The mechanical failures that a lot of these tanks had was really not too good. But basically, the Germans attacked. They had their A7Vs, they had their infantry, and they pushed. On the British side, though, there wasn't just infantry sat there. There was also a lot of artillery guns, there was a lot of machine guns, and also there was the Mark IV tank, which the British used at the time. Not the original tank that was used in 1916, but the Mark IV was an upgraded version which was first used in mid-1917 at the Battle of Messines Ridge. And this Mark IV tank, there's two variants of it. You have the male version, and the male version, it had two 6-pounder guns, so 57mm, and then also three 303 Lewis machine guns. It also had a nice little engine in it, a 6-cylinder inline sleeve valve 16-litre petrol engine with 105 brake horsepower, and also it could go at a maximum speed of 4 miles per hour. There are also female versions there, and female versions were a little bit lighter at 27 tons, and the main reason is instead of having those two 6-pounder guns, it had 5 303 Lewis machine guns. So the main difference between the two is the female version had lighter armaments, which was used to deal with mainly infantry, where the male version would deal with fortifications and also positions. But understand, a 6-pounder is going to really leave quite a large hole in many things, including an A7V, which doesn't have a ton of armor on it. When it came to the armor on the Mark IV, though, it wasn't great either. 6.1 to 12mm, basically designed to stop stuff like rifle caliber ammunition. But these two behemoths, these two sets of ideas, actually went against each other when it came to the First World War. For the first time ever, you had this tank-and-tank engagement, and what ended up happening is it was a short battle, and 6 British Mark IVs were sidelined by battle damage, 2 A7s suffered mechanical breakdowns on the battlefield, and a third was heavily damaged by the guns of a Mark IV, and basically they abandoned the tank because they were worried that the ammunition would explode. So this was a offensive from the Germans, which meant that they did fight tank on tank, which I think is really cool, and something that should be seen in War Thunder. War Thunder is not just a game which is designed around the ideas of meta-defining vehicles or only talking about modern vehicles. I think stuff such as the First World War and mid-war stuff should be represented as well. And what better way to do it in the form of some kind of event around this time, of this battle happening, and being able to have stuff like the A7V and the Mark IV in your hangar. Now, the question is, these vehicles are going to be completely useless, even when it comes to reserve tier. So what do you do with them? Well, you either do two separate things. You make them a decoration for your hangar, so you can sit it around there somewhere. Maybe if they add that functionality in the future, that would be really cool. So on the right or left-hand side of your British and German hangar, you could just have a Mark IV sat there, or an A7V sat there. I think that would be pretty cool. Or you just limit it so you can only bring it into custom battles, but you can also preview it in the hangar. And I think that also would be something that you could do. But I just really think that this idea could be expanded to many different machines, just to kind of bring some historical information to the general community, and also at the same time could make it so you get some really cool stuff in the game, which wouldn't really be useful, but would definitely be a nice little historic thing for players to get and understand that, they were around at that point when it comes to War Thunder, and they were able to get this vehicle, and maybe that starts conversations about this battle at Villers-Bretonneux. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hosest Kishore, Hans, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.